What's your favorite part of the phone?
That we're all still alive after working on it. Hello, I'm Tom. What do I call myself? Do I say Thomas or Tom? What have I been saying? Tom. Hello, I'm Tom Howard, Head of Design at Nothing, and today we're doing an unboxing video on Phone 1. I have a little bit of chaos behind us. Design team and others are helping to set up. It's one day until the launch. We have a party downstairs. So what are they doing? They're making tables. The cameras looks very professional, but this table does not look that professional. I think we moved in, or Adam and the team moved in a couple of weeks ago. And you know, it's like shortage of wood around the world, so getting desks takes a little bit of time, and you know, so I think they just received the parts like this morning because it was wrong a few times. So they are trying to set everything up. We're here to unbox Phone 1. Just received some of the black colorway, hot off the press. I'm very excited. Okay, so I mean, the first thing is that the weight is quite substantial. It's almost like a magnifying glass, you know, of the product, isn't it? It's like blown up, so you see some of the details. We have the light strips here and the charging coil. That was nice. Okay, so you know, if you tear this little red tab, then we had this on ear 1 as well, and it's kind of this, you know, experience that you only get to do once, which is kind of nice, you know, when you buy a flashy new toy. You know, meeting it for the first time is very important. So we wanted to sort of give this experience that you could only have once. So I just tear it open. Then this little end comes off. And inside we have this kind of like 2 slots, which is kind of cool. And I'm just going to try the left one first. Okay, what we have here. This doesn't look like a phone. This looks like a kind of phone-shaped package with some accessories inside. So we have charging cable and all the legal stuff, but who reads that anyway? And then we have this little pin here that you can use to open up the SIM tray. And it's just like a little pin and a pill on the end of it, like a transparent pill. Maybe that will come in handy later. And then we can take out the phone. We have this kind of, you know, protection for shipping. Off. Okay, so now we can use this little pin, and there's a little hole on the end. We just plug that. Oh, that felt actually quite nice. And this is where you put your SIM. And the cool thing is that you can actually put 2 SIMs, one on either side. So I think, you know, one of the real challenges with developing, you know, the interesting part of the phone, which to me is of course everything that's going on, you know, on the back side, is that because we have such a space constraint, you know, if we want to add this kind of glyph interface into the back of the phone, that means that either we have a very, very small amount of space that we can do that, or we have to start to eat into the battery of the phone. So that's like, you know, you want to have a big battery and you want to have the glyph interface. So how do you solve that? Then we had like 0.3 millimeters of space that we were able to sort of develop a technology. That was the number we had to hit if we wanted to have it in Phone 1. Otherwise we would grow the phone, you know, too much that it would feel uncomfortable to hold in your hand. So we actually looked at light bulbs because there's a kind of light bulb called a filament LED bulb that has this kind of phosphorus material coating like a piece of metal with a lot of diodes on it. When they sort of emit light, then the material, the phosphorescent material, has a kind of glow to it. So you can see many examples of these globes you know, used around the place. And it was actually that technology that we ended up using and scaling down to 0.3 millimeters and putting that inside of Phone 1. So And that was like a real, when we found that and we found a vendor that was doing this kind of mini LED technology, which is the scaled down version, that was like, it's kind of like a fun circle that it is like a light bulb inside of the phone. Who's my favorite? I think black is beautiful, white is beautiful. We worked super hard on both colorways, of course. And we started with the black one because it was like a little bit, from a perspective of working with colors and materials, it's a little bit easier in the darker kind of end of the range. White is much more sensitive. You have 15 parts, all of them come from different places, and to get the whites all to match, and yeah, so that was like a very big process. Once we figured out how to do it with the black, then we turned to the white. But I think both turned out great. That was the white. First of all, you have a very tight stack up with a lot of components that needs to get fit into this thing. And basically everything you see here sits on top of the battery, which we want to be as big as possible so that you have like all day use, So then when you build up from that, you have to sort of layer things one on top of the other. And the important thing for us was really to, find a way to make sure that you could experience that when you looked at the back of the phone, and also that, you can stare for tens of hours and still find like more details. They sort of just reveal themselves to you. So a few details like this one here where we, worked quite hard to actually cut through this part. So we could reveal part of the mid-frame and you could see the little antenna wire kind of peeking through, and maybe you can follow it down here. And the same thing is here, that you have this FPC. You have to start with the components, you need to understand them, and then you need to figure out how you can work with them in an interesting way. So if you just rip the back off a phone, then you sort of get a very raw experience. So we started by trying to understand how all of the components worked, and sort of how we could arrange them in a way that was kind of obviously very efficient for the engineers, but also interesting at the same time. As we had talked about before, we sort of had this light bulb moment where we realized that it would be super cool if we could tell a story about these components using light and sort of wrap them with beams of light and create this kind of like an icon that was immediately recognizable from across the room. And that was something that also became this kind of new interface. How many cameras do you actually use every day? That's sort of like one approach that you can take, right, when you're sort of planning a product. And it seems like that's where the industry has sort of, they're all converging towards this point where, okay, well, all that we really have that we can do, because all the processors, they are, how much more, performance do you get every year? There's not much action happening there, so everyone turns to the cameras. And, it's gotten to a point now where if you start to act in that way, then, a couple of years down the line, you have a phone with the back full of cameras. And you can see them on bus stops all around London, I'm sure now. But where is the real value in that? Like how many lenses and modules do you actually need? Okay, maybe we don't have the most expansive experience, like with covering all of the edge cases. We focus on the things that, that you use 99.9% of the time, deliver that at a great price. And that gives us also the space to think and explore other aspects of the product that we can put our resources towards instead. Then we can bring something really fresh you haven't seen before. Yeah, so the other thing that was really important to us was to have this kind of even deadband around the display. So, if you consider that this is sort of like the main interface point for the phone, then you want to have as much of this space to be as usable as possible, right? So in the ideal world, you would have the display coming all the way out to the border of the phone. In practice, that's very difficult because all the signals from that tell it what to show, they run along, you sort of have to pick that one of the edges of the phone. And so you always need to pick like a place to fold over that connector. Depending how you manage that, might end up with like a really big black area at the bottom or the top. And sometimes it's like, you know, one measure at the top, one measure at the bottom, and different on the sides. So yeah, that was like a big part of the process of working with the display, was developing, you know, and finding one that had this kind of even border. You know, also if it's uneven, you know, every time you pick up the phone, it's kind of distracting to you that you see this, because the human eye really likes to see that things are kind of organized. Then you don't notice them so much. So, you know, we really tried to remove that kind of barrier to using the phone by having this kind of even band. But really, it's kind of like a supply chain problem. We also took a risk, you know, to work with a vendor that could do this for us. But, you know, we faced like serious issues. I know, with lockdowns and, you know, component availability, and, you know, so we sort of had this match made in heaven with someone that was like crazy enough to be able to do this for us, but there was like risks involved with that. So that's not the only reason that you might see, you know, devices out there without an even border, but it's, yeah, one of them. Yeah, it's a good question. It's because the design kicks ass. No. But, you know, we work, of course, super hard. At the end of the line, you know, our colleagues that are much closer to the, you know, where these things are made, you know, with incredibly tight tolerances. I mean, just to get the fit, you know, between the case and the glass to this level, you know, is really tough. But it's all of those tiny details that you kind of have this even gap where two parts meet, and, you know, find the right balance of what you can accept. And because, you know, of course, the more that we work on those details, the higher the price goes up for the end user as well. And that's like, we really try to bring products to people at a really amazing price. So that's like a fine line to walk. But you know, I think we managed to get the right mix. It's also a lot of the things that you don't see, but you feel. You know, how does the button? You know, what kind of feeling and architecture is it behind that? You know, and then it's also one that has to be waterproof. So it's yeah, a lot of levels. I think, you know, the choice of materials with the recycled aluminium, you know, and glass on two sides. These are materials that they have like also certain conductive properties when it comes to heat. So they tend to be like colder when you touch them as well. Somehow that allows you to feel the value, you know, in the material. And also like that they are so dense and massive, and it feels cold, you know, whereas when you pick up plastic, it feels like kind of greasy and warm. It doesn't like suck the heat out of your hand in the same way. It just feels like a bit dirty after a while. So we really wanted to, for Phone 1, we wanted to sort of bring materials that, you know, had a real density to them, that were very durable and long-lasting, and ones that also, you know, to be honest, like also there were established supply chains for, you know, so that we were able to deliver really high quality at this price.
What's your favorite part of the phone?
That we're all still alive after working on it.
You don't have a feature that sort of stands out for you? I know
you know what it is, the bloody glyphs, isn't it? You know, when we started on that process, we didn't know what it could be used for. And that's something often that we love to do, is kind of add like a little detail that, you know, that's almost like a platform. It's just something that can be a place for new ideas. We absolutely knew that we wanted to have these strips of light on the back of the phone, but we didn't have all the answers from the start, you know. And it wasn't until we, you know, like hired the team in London, we have Adam and Tom and others, that, you know, when they flew over to Stockholm, we did this like a kraftsamling where we all came together and we just focused on the phone. And we had some like early sound sketches, you know, and we basically just started riffing on ways that we could like bring the audio experience and the light experience together. And that was sort of like the birth of this interface. Because also, you know, all of the lights are sort of related to components, then you get the idea that they could be used to sort of signal different functions as they were happening inside of the device. So, you know, you get a lot of ideas, but we didn't have that from the start, but we were very sure that we wanted to have that there, and then you know, this will be a place that, you know, will continue to grow sort of over the lifetime of Phone One. We're just at the very beginning, right? But imagine where we will be, you know, in a year from now, all of the, you know, things that we can do with it. Yeah, I mean, of course, we're like super excited to share this with the world. Everyone has been working super hard. We're just so excited to see it out there, see what people think about it, and, you know, see what we can make of this like crazy new interface that we have on the back. Sitting here drinking some ice cold water while the people behind me are doing hard labor.